Hello, I'm Tom Wilkinson, and welcome to the Thinking in English podcast, a podcast aimed at intermediate to advanced level English learners. On today's episode, I want to discuss the idea of universal basic income. This is a highly debated and controversial topic, with strong arguments on both sides. Would providing all residents or citizens of a country with small amounts of money on a regular basis improve people's lives? Or is it an expensive waste of money? Are there better methods? We'll address these questions and more in this episode of Thinking in English. We're now on Instagram. I'm producing daily content focusing on improving your vocabulary, so make sure you check out the Thinking in English page. Thinking in English podcast on Instagram, or the link is in the description. Instagram is also probably the best way to contact me if you ever feel like doing that. All transcripts of the podcast are now available on the Thinking in English blog. Vocabulary lists, comprehension questions, and articles are all there for you to read. The link is in the description, so please check it out. Now here is today's vocabulary list. As always, the written list is in the description of the podcast and also available on our blog, thinkinginenglish.blog. Unprecedented. Unprecedented. Unprecedented is an adjective used to describe something that has never happened or existed in the past. For example, unemployment has reached an unprecedented level. To adapt. To adapt. To change or to change something to suit different conditions or uses. For example, sometimes we have to adapt the design to suit the customer's requirements. Unconditionally. Unconditionally. In a way that is complete and not limited in any way. For example, he thanked his mother for being unconditionally supportive. Automation. Automation. Automation is the use of machines and computers that can operate without needing any human control. For example, automation will reduce the need for a large, highly skilled workforce. Detractor. Detractor. A detractor is someone who criticizes something or someone, often unfairly. For example, his detractors claim that his personality makes him unsuitable for leadership. Proponent. Proponent. A person who speaks publicly in support of a particular idea or plan of action. For example, he is one of the leading proponents of capital punishment. To attribute. To attribute. To say or think that something is the result of a particular thing. For example, her success can be attributed to three main factors. Implementation. Implementation. Implementation is the act of starting to use a plan or system. For example, there will be a delay in the implementation of new regulations. To exacerbate. To exacerbate. To make something that is already bad even worse. For example, this attack will exacerbate the already tense relationship between the two communities. And finally, to empower. To empower. To give someone official or legal authority, or the freedom or confidence to do something. For example, We empower our sales staff to make decisions without always having to consult their boss. Over the last few months, much of the world has experienced unprecedented challenges brought on by the ongoing pandemic. In particular, the stability of the global economic system has been repeatedly tested as millions of businesses around the world have had to shut, change their business models, and adapt to the new situation. For self-employed people, small business owners, retail staff, waiters and waitresses, those who work in the tourism industry, and many, many more professions, 2020 has been a year of instability, stress, and financial worry. Against this backdrop, universal basic income has been gaining support in a number of countries. What is universal basic income? Well, universal basic income, or UBI, is a policy idea which involves governments regularly giving money to every resident. According to the economist and long-term UBI supporter Guy Standing, it is a modest amount of money paid unconditionally to individuals on a regular basis, intended to be paid to all, regardless of age, gender, marital status, and work history. Earlier this year, Spain announced its intention to bring in a guaranteed minimum income to ease the pressure of coronavirus on poorer families. There have also been some intriguing trials and experiments with UBI in all corners of the planet. Canada, Finland, and parts of India have all run short-term programs to test how effective UBI is in practice. About 10 years ago, an experiment in Namibia gave 1,000 people $100 per month for around 2 years. The only genuine UBI in existence today is the Alaska Permanent Fund, which provides all residents of the US state a share of profits from the state's oil revenues. This year, every Alaskan received almost $1,000. Like any radical and new economic policy, UBI has both supporters and opponents, and can often provoke strong reactions. Supporters argue that UBI makes sure no one is in poverty. It stops low wages. It allows families to support their relatives, and helps those who work in careers likely to be replaced by automation. Detractors worry UBI discourages people from working, is too expensive, makes low-paid, unpopular jobs even more difficult to fill, provides people money that will likely be spent on drugs, alcohol, or other unhealthy things, and is wasted on the very rich people who don't need it. The rest of this episode will look at a few of these arguments in more detail. Proponents of UBI usually argue that it reduces poverty and income inequality, and improves health. And there is quite a lot of evidence for this. Alaska is currently the second best US state in terms of income equality, which is largely attributed to the implementation of its UBI program. Moreover, Namibia's UBI program reduced household poverty rates from 76% of residents before the trial to 37% after 1 year, while child malnutrition rates also fell from 42% to 17% in 6 months. Participants in UBI trials in Kenya, India, and Canada all reported improvements in happiness and health. On the contrary, detractors of UBI claim that it actually takes money from the poor and gives it to everyone, increasing poverty and depriving the poor of needed targeted support. Funds that are normally given to the poor are distributed to everyone under UBI. Research by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD, in Finland, France, Italy, and the UK concludes that UBI would not prove to be an effective tool for reducing poverty. A second argument, often made by supporters, is that UBI leads to positive job growth and lower school dropout rates. It helps to protect people from slow wage growth, low wages, and the lack of job security. Moreover, it could allow recipients to stay in school longer and participate in training to improve skills or learn a trade. Since the start of the Alaska Permanent Fund, the fact that UBI recipients have more money has resulted in 10,000 additional jobs for the state. On the other hand, opponents of UBI argue that a strong economy needs people to be motivated to work hard, and that uncertainty is a great motivator to work hard. UBI, as it provides guaranteed security, removes this uncertainty. Maybe if we pay people unconditionally to do nothing, they will do nothing. In 2016, the Swiss government opposed UBI, stating that it would encourage fewer people to work and exacerbate the labor and skills shortages. Perhaps the strongest arguments by opponents of UBI is that UBI is too expensive. In 2016, the UK Minister for Employment, Damien Hinds, rejected the idea of UBI, saying that estimated costs ranging from 8.2 billion to 160 billion pounds are clearly unaffordable. Economist John Kay studied proposed UBI levels in Finland, France, Germany, Switzerland, the UK, and the US, and concluded that in all of these countries, UBI at a level which can guarantee an acceptable standard of living is impossibly expensive. Either the level of basic income is unacceptably low, or the cost of providing it is unacceptably high. Nevertheless, for supporters of UBI, the positives still outweigh the negatives. For instance, UBI guarantees income for non-working parents and caregivers, thus empowering important unpaid roles, especially for women. It allows working parents to reduce their working hours in order to spend more time with their children or help with household chores. So here is today's final thought. Today's episode has looked at some of the arguments surrounding the debate over universal basic income. Do the costs outweigh the benefits? Should government be responsible for giving money to the people? Does UBI discourage hard work? Or does it help those most in need? Is it too expensive? Or is it worth the money? What do you think? Here are today's comprehension questions. As always, the written questions and answers are available in the description of the podcast and also on our blog, thinkinginenglish.blog. The Namibian UBI trial gave 1,000 people how much money? What did research by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, in Finland, France, Italy, and the UK conclude? Why did the Swiss government oppose UBI? Thank you for listening to today's episode of Thinking in English. Share with your friends, check out our social media links in the description, and send us a message. We're now on Instagram, so go to Thinking in English Podcast on Instagram or click on the link in the description and send us a message. Check out the daily content I'm producing. Lots of good vocabulary, idioms, overused words content being produced. Also check out our blog, thinkinginenglish.blog, or link in the description. You can find the vocabulary list, comprehension questions, and entire transcripts and articles right there for you to look at. If you have any ideas for topics, future podcast guests, or other learning formats, please let us know. And we really appreciate all of the messages and feedback. Oh, and please leave us a rating. Thank you, and see you next time.